Did you get your makeup on?
I missed that part.
Shave.
Okay, and then I'm just going to let Sherry know. Wendy has no that she's the for 4.9 and 8.1, so we will put her.
Recording in progress.
That's the sound. All right, we'll get this planning committee meeting called to order here for Tuesday, February 25th already. I want to acknowledge that we're holding the meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin First Nation. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Director Gisborne. Seconded by, I see Director McCormick. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried, unanimous, thank you. The next is adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions of our previous minutes? Seeing none, can I have a mover to adopt? Director Gisborne. Seconder, I see Director Brander, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? Good, that's carried unanimously. So we are going to move into delegations and inquiries, and Director McCormick is going to remove herself, I believe. Go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Wait, you do it until after she's told us why.
No,
okay.
She did it.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yes.
She understood and she told us ahead of time. So
Oh, I know, but usually for the public meeting, they explain what the conflict is before they duck out.
Okay, do you want me to? We
that'd
can,
be, yeah, for open disclosure, yeah, let her explain her reason.
She was talking, but she was muted.
Oh, bear with us. She'll probably be.
McCormick. Oh, thank you. You were muted before you could declare your conflict.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe we'll just get you to explain your conflict and then we'll let you go.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. I'll declare a conflict because one of the applicants for this subdivision owns a business at which I sell art. So I need to declare that and recuse myself for that item and item 8.1 on the agenda.
Thank you. All right, we'll carry on. So we do have a delegation, I believe. Maybe if you want to just step forward and introduce yourselves and just, tell us why you're here. We typically will just give up to 10 minutes and then maybe allow extra. Probably won't take that long, but we give you 10 minutes and then any questions from the directors too.
Yeah, no problem. I like the new digs.
Yeah, thank you.
Standing in the closet. Just as usual, here to be proactive. Actually, both of the applications that we're looking at, their neighbors side by side. Al's actually involved in both. He's got a little sliver of land, but really they're straightforward subdivisions. But we just like to be proactive and for you folks to see the faces behind the applications. If you have any questions, anything that any red flags, anything that you see, we'd like to deal with those before you head into the meeting.
All right, directors, anyone, do I see any hands?
Nothing's popped out to me, Chair.
Brander, I don't see your hand. We appreciate that, and obviously it is going to come before us very quickly here, and your application is pretty straightforward, so I don't see any questions. Appreciate your coming before us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So that's 4.1 and 4.2. If everybody's, or should we deal with each one?
Once Director McCormick comes, perhaps let
very good.
See if she has any questions.
For the reminder. Hi, Director McCormick. Thanks for coming on back. Do you have any questions of the delegation pertaining to 4.2? Yeah, go ahead. Just on mute there. Take yourself off mute. You're on mute. We'll get there. There you go.
There. Okay, sorry. I didn't hear a presentation. Was there a presentation under 4.2?
The delegations just made themselves available to answer any questions we have as directors regarding the submission before us.
Okay. then I would ask one question, and it's regarding the natural hazard area. And I just wondered if, because I couldn't really overlay the two maps, it was hard to overlay the map of the hazards with the map of the lots. So I'm just wondering, is that contained within the boatyard?
Yeah, do you understand the question?
Yeah, the area I believe that you're talking to is, will actually form a boundary between the boatyard and the development. The recommendations in the report are asking for a site level assessment, which would determine the bounds of that area of concern, but it definitely has been considered in our planning work. We don't want to put folks at danger. Don't, no worries there.
Does
Thank
that
you.
answer your question?
It does. Great project. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions here for the delegation, we'll move into correspondence. We have one item of correspondence. I just want to open that for myself here. Under 6.1, it is some correspondence from Specialist Crown Land Authorizations. And is there any business arising from the correspondence? I'll let you have a quick look here, folks, before I guess something. Go ahead, Director Gisborne. I thought I saw your hand.
I was just wondering, because I see this as more so covering Area C, not Area B. I was just wondering if there's impacts on the community out there, especially when it comes to like the float cabins on boats.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask if any staff, Ms. Rod, do you have any comments on this correspondence?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I just wanted to flag this correspondence came in while I was away. I have reached out to the contact, Amy Hagman, because the letter says that they are anxious to meet within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I suggested I just put a few dates out there because they were asking for dates. And that was February 28th, which is this Friday, March 3rd, 5th or 7th. So that'd be Monday, Wednesday, or Friday next week. And my thought was that I wanted to share with the planning committee was that it would be the directors for electoral area C and electoral area D. They have lands within Seashell, Swea. And so they might maybe want to be involved in the meeting together with staff. And the ministry is really asking for the meeting to see how we can streamline the process, because there's almost 1,000 blocks within the Seashell Swea, and a smaller proportion of those are within Prophet Regional District, Area C and Area D. And the letter states that 494 will be new applications and 481 are existing tenures. So my thought was the existing tenures have already come through the referral process, and the regional district would have offered comment on those at the time they were awarded. And so my suggestion would be the streamline. We just look at any new applications, and we don't know what that number is until we meet with them. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, I guess my question, I have a statement. Basically, it's nice to be asked for involvement in some of these decisions. And from what I can see, we have some tight deadlines for response, which you are undertaken. Is there any action required coming out of this correspondence, or are we already completed that? My question. Do we need to make a motion for anything?
Chair?
Yes.
I think I would defer to the corporate officer whether that's required. I can coordinate the meeting in history, and I can work with
Thank you. I'll give you a second to think about that. I was going to ask the involved directors if you have any ideas around involvement or a response to this request. Yep, Director Brander.
I think I'd like to leave it in the hands of the planning department and be kept aware of when the meeting is scheduled, and if I'm able to attend, I think I probably will. But I see this as being more of an operational staff issue at this point. Thanks.
And actually, to your point, and thanks to the CAO, he has pointed out that the letter is directed to Ms. Rodden. So that actually helps us as directors that we can allow our staff to undergo this work. Yeah, Director Elliott.
So I could see by the letter that there's that folks who already have floats, whether they be houses or docks or what have you, are going to have a free process to register it through this through this thing. When are those folks going to be expected to do that? Do you know that? And that's just, I'm just asking it because people watching might be curious, well, when I'm supposed to do that.
Right. I think a lot of this is also coming out of the recent announcement by the Seashaw Nation and the BC government of the new agreement around their SWIA. So Ms. Rodden, do you have any idea of timing on Director Elliott's comments about timing on this, or urgency sort of to get people signed up or anything? Yes.
The chair, in the fact sheet that accompanies the letter, there is some information around the timeline.
Okay.
Province and Seashell Nation will begin a 3-year transition period, in which we will work to provide existing tenured and untenured docks and boathouses with 20-year long-term. So it's a 3-year window. There's probably some other details in here.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Seeing no other hands, I think we'll move on. Our staff has that well in hand. Moving on to reports 8.1. Director McCormick.
I want to recuse myself because of a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. All right, so 8.1, she's gone, good, is the provincial referral for a 3-lot conventional subdivision, 1864 Blubber Bay Road, electoral area D. There is a recommendation before us. Commonly are proof of water, proof of septic, and then qualified professional to complete a site level assessment of any lands identified in that natural hazard area, and to inform future development and minimize risk from hazardous conditions. We have a mover for that. Thank you, Director Gisborne. Seconded by. Thank you, Director Brander. Discussion. Reading some notes there.
Fairly straightforward.
Yeah, you know, obviously we've got our normal requirements that make sense to us, and the proponent has explained how the site assessment will be handled. I don't really have any particular questions. Pretty straightforward to me. Giving the other directors a chance to ask any questions. Okay, being none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I see Director McCormick. Thank you. We're now on 8.2, Director McCormick, and the body. We have a recommendation before us. This is the Nootka Street Zoning Amendment Bylaw 321.2. So there's a recommendation, to endorse the bylaw and to forward it to the March 11th board meeting. So there's actually two instructions here. Do I have a mover? Yes. Discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to take a look at some of the minutes from back in November, and there was also another motion that was referred to staff that was, to amend the Nootka Street zoning bylaw to permit an accessory dwelling unit for essentially all parcels. And that motion ended up being referred to staff, and I'm kind of wondering what's the status of that motion that was referred to staff?
Okay, I don't know the answer to that, Ms. Rodden.
Through the chair. All of the directives that come forward from committee and board meetings go into our cascade reporting that we do the quarterly reports to you for, and staff deal with those in date order. So there's several reports outstanding in those board directives, and I think the report that Director Gisborne is referring to is fifth or sixth on that list.
Yeah, excuse me.
And well, now I'm, I guess, a little confused because that motion was adopted before this motion that's coming up next on the agenda. So if they're by the date, then I would expect that report would come before this report. And the reason why I bring this up is if we were to amend the Nootka Street zoning bylaw to allow a secondary ADU on all parcels up there, then that would make this motion essentially irrelevant. Needed. So I'm just kind of wondering where the other report is, because personally, I would like to go that direction. Otherwise, we're going to be kind of stuck with a zoning bylaw that kind of singles out individual parcels one after another. So I'm just wondering where the other report is.
Ms. Rodden, I saw your hand again.
Through the chair, yeah, at the November meeting, the item of business was a development. It was an application for a zoning bylaw amendment, an applicant driven. So there's a legislative responsibility to review those applications. Property owners have the right to make application, and we have an obligation to review those in a timely manner. So the decision was made at that meeting in the background to the report, that the bylaw be direct, or that the application be accepted, and directed staff to prepare the amending bylaw. So there's a time sensitivity once applications are in
In the process. Okay, thank you. Okay, Director Gisborne, go ahead.
So I still don't think I've had an answer to my question, which is when, like, do we have any idea when we're going to get that report to amend the Nootka Street zoning bylaw for all of Nootka?
Yeah, I think we've heard from staff, they're not going to give us a date. It's 4th or 5th on the list, so it should be 4th.
Could be this fall, could be next year.
A suggestion though, like, because I think I know you're getting at, would it be appropriate to refer this one or park it until we can actually have that one assessed? I think that's what you're getting at, is that?
Yeah, well, the reason why I'm bringing this up is if we can change the Nootka Street zoning bylaw to allow accessory dwelling units for all parcels, because that would be consistent with the Area B OCP, then we don't need to go this route. We don't need to amend the Nootka Street zoning bylaw, for one specific parcel. We can do it for all parcels. But if we're going to be waiting 6 months, a year, or years, I have no idea, then I think that's going to affect our decision. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Any other questions? We haven't moved to the recommendation, right? Other directors have questions? I mean, I think I understand what Director Gisborne's getting at. He'd like to kind of look at the area as a whole. That's what you're getting at. So, excuse me, nobody has made a recommendation yet on this. Dr. Brander?
I'll move the recommendation in the package. I think that, well, I'll stop there.
Yep, hang on, we need a seconder to start talking about it. Okay, Director McCormick, you're seconding? Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Director Brander.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I understand where Director Gisborne is coming from, but as has been stated, we don't know exactly how long it'll be before we get that report. And I think as this is a resident-driven request and application, I think it makes sense for us to move on it now as it's in front of us. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Looking for any other comments? Director McCormick, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. If this is approved, then would it then kind of not then apply to all of the other lots in the same area because you've done it for one, therefore you do it for all?
I think that's kind of one of the points that we're getting at. So maybe
yeah, but I mean, do we need to go through a whole process, or can we approve it for one and then have that kind of apply to all?
That's a good specific question, maybe for manager of planning services. Does this affect all the properties or just the one?
Through the chair, this bylaw specifically applies to the one property. The property in the application. It would be a different amending bylaw to permit accessory dwelling units on all parcels.
Does that answer your question, Director McCormick?
Yes, but I would expect then if this is approved, anyone else coming forward with another application would, you know, almost assuredly be approved because you've done it for one, therefore you do it for others. Anyway, I understand what you're saying, so that's fine.
Maybe I'll just add myself to the conversation. My instincts tell me again, if the director for the area and the people there, I'm wondering how the people feel about this juxtaposing a one-off solution in the neighborhood versus that approach. And there's also financial, you know, the proponent has paid their money, I believe. And so now, you know, where my mind goes is that with any then subsequent proponent need to pay their money, and everybody's paying their money, when if we could approach this in a more holistic manner, then that saves some people some money, and it saves our staff some time and the cost of our staff preparing reports and that sort of thing. I know I'm rambling a bit, but this is where my mind is going with sort of how to approach this particular application. So I know that wasn't really a question, but that's where I'm going. I'm interested to hear everybody else. Director Gisborne.
Well, thank you. I think you're on the similar wavelength. This brings me in my thought process to not just the political conferences I've attended, but also past town halls I've had in Area B, specifically up in the Nootka Street area. And one of the things I've always heard from folks up there is they prefer consistency across their neighborhood. They don't really like to see one parcel being singled out. That being said, I didn't hear anyone that was opposed to accessory dwelling units up there, to having that secondary suite. So I believe that the solution should be making the change for all parcels to allow a secondary suite. We are prohibited from having a public hearing on this matter because it is consistent with the Area B official community plan. So to me, it's an easy thing to support, but going this route where we would change the Nootka Street zoning bylaw to add a new regulation 5.3.1 following 5.3 that reads, despite section 5.3a on the parcel of land legally described as Strata Lot 7, District Lot 3692, Group 1, New Westminster District, Strata Plan BC S 3610, one additional dwelling unit having a floor area no greater than 1,200 square feet is permitted. The issue I have with that is when the next applicant comes in, we're then going to have to add another regulation to the zoning bylaw that defines that property and the maximum floor area of their accessory dwelling unit. Imagine if every property up there submitted an application, the zoning bylaw will suddenly quadruple in size, all to, you know, single out individual parcels. I see that as a cost, not just to the applicants, which submit their $1,000, but that will also be a cost to the taxpayer, because that $1,000, as I understand, doesn't cover the whole cost to our organization for the staff reports to write the zoning bylaw amendments, and it creates an inconsistency across the area. So I would be very much in support of allowing the accessory dwelling unit 1,200 square feet for all parcels up on Nootka, but to single out one parcel at a time, waiting for each individual to put their application in so that we can micromanage one parcel at a time. To me, that's going to increase the costs. That's going to increase the cost for our residents, for our taxpayers, not just in Area B, but across the planning service. And I don't think that's very cost effective, especially when we're hearing so much kind of noise in the community about the costs and our taxpayers and the tax increases. So I support not this motion, but I support allowing secondary the accessory dwelling unit on all parcels up on Nootka.
Yes, Director Allen.
An amendment to the proposed motion that would allow amendment to the bylaw that isn't application driven, just to end the bylaw as per, and I know we're waiting for a report on it. I'm just questioning whether that is possible or ill-advised or what.
Yeah, I think that at this point, we've already directed staff to create a report to understand the whole entire issue, and that's, you've heard that brought up here. I'd like to go to Director McCormick. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I support the motion that we have before us, but I also support where Director Gisborne is trying to go. So maybe the solution is to approve this today and then ask staff a report on, doing, as you suggest, bringing it all through the whole zoning area. It would be a 2-part process, but at least it's better than, a 70-part process.
Director Brander, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I agree with Director McCormick. To my knowledge, at least, I don't think we have any other applications for zoning amendments up in that area. And so the next report we'll get concerning this bylaw is about adding accessory dwelling units to all of the areas. This applicant has already paid and work has already been done. I don't see any point in not going forward with this, because the next what Director Gisborne is looking for is coming down the pike. So there's no reason to delay this one in my mind.
Maybe I'll add another thing that's occurred to me is that in this case, this dwelling exists already. So we're not talking about somebody who's being held up and prevented from doing something. We're trying to fit them into the puzzle that we've created up there. So I don't see urgency to follow through with this recommendation before we can understand the entire area and what the options are up there. So that's where I'm at right now. So your hand.
Yeah, there already are different accessory dwelling units up on Nootka. One resident up there already contacted me and said that they had to decommission theirs because they got an enforcement notice. So it's not just one, it's multiple. I'm reading the proposed bylaw, and I think that there could be a relatively simple solution. What I read out was, despite section 5.3a, and then it identifies the parcel, we could just cross out the identification of the individual parcel so that it would read, despite section 5.3a, one additional dwelling unit having a floor area no greater than 1,200 square feet is permitted. If that was what the bylaw read, I would support it. Because what that would mean is an additional dwelling unit would then be allowed on all parcels up on Nootka. That require refer it back to staff, or is that something that we can just make a motion to strike that out of the bylaw?
Through the chair, I agree with Director Gisborne's thought process. However, I think it would be springing something on the rest of the people that didn't or weren't notified of what was on the agenda. Because if they knew it was on the agenda, you might have 5 or 6 people, property owners, showing up saying, no, I don't want to be part of that. I've got one dwelling, I'm good. Or you might have another one with a dwelling saying, yeah, I'm illegal, I want you to do that. So I agree with the thought process, but I think you'd be springing it upon those people in that particular area that aren't here today.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's where my mind went to, is that we should have enough time to let people understand what we're doing here. So yes, Director Gisborne.
Simple solution. We could strike that out, then postpone this item until the next planning committee meeting. Therefore, folks will have the opportunity to attend. That, I think, is a very simple solution. We can strike it out and then postpone it until next month. And then all the residents, as the CEO has pointed out, will have the time to come and ask.
I guess the question for staff is, doesn't appear to materially change the intent of the motion. I know we talk about that, whether we require a new motion or if we can amend this one. That's my question. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but.
Thank you, Chair. No, I was just actually trying to do some mental gymnastics, how we would procedurally do that.
Okay.
Because we currently have a motion on the table that says we'll forward this one. I'm not sure if that's able to be done. The proposal is able to be done. It might be a good idea to refer it to staff to bring forward to the next one with and list the changes you would like, because then they can amend. I understand that there's like notices within the report and things like that, so that would make sure that whatever direction you're hoping to go would be welcome.
Okay. I think that's sound guidance. So I think you're recommending a motion to refer
To staff,
right.
bring forward to the March Planning Committee with specifically to address that.
Yeah. I'll wait for.
I see Director McCormick. Go ahead. Director McCormick.
Oh, yeah. How does that affect the time sensitivity issue? Because you said this was time sensitive. So I'm just thinking, if we refer this to the March Planning Committee and then it goes, that would be the end of March that it would be approved.
Okay, good question. Ms. Rodden?
To the chair, the time sensitivity really is that this is an accessory dwelling unit that's a rental unit, right? So it's providing rental housing. The property owner has had a great deal of stress leading up to this because they found out that it was illegal under the bylaw to have it, right? So they've paid the fee, they paid for the septic filing, they upgraded the septic, they've done a lot of work, and they've had a sign on their property for 3 months saying this is what they've applied for. So everybody in the neighborhood that goes by their place on Yarrowshook and has seen the sign all knows this is happening. And it's been transparent and public. So the time sensitivity is really that we should be dealing with this to give that property owner certainty and their renter certainty and remove that stress. They've gone through all the hoops. It's a straightforward, it's been reviewed by legal. It's a standard amending bylaw for this type of thing. I'm sure the city directors see these types of applications on a regular basis. So that's the time sensitivity. Of course, it is the directors, the board's prerogative if you want to open up the whole bylaw. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Elliott?
It seems like you could go forward with the motion as is and also do another motion to handle the other thing that you're trying to do. I don't think one is precluding the other, except for the fact that we'd asked for a report because we wanted to investigate the best way to go about that. So then that kind of is the issue of we don't have the report yet. But I don't know, maybe you could do them both in tandem.
Yeah, thank you. See any other hands? Director Gisborne?
Yeah. I completely sympathize with the property owner. This does create a great deal of stress. Out of respect for the community at large up on Nootka, that bylaw has been creating stress up there for a long time. And a lot of folks up there are waiting to see what the outcome of this application is. If we support this application as is written, I suspect we're going to start getting a whole plethora of additional applications for the units that are already constructed that have, they haven't gotten their enforcement notice. They're kind of under the radar, and those that are actually wanting to get the secondary suite built. I didn't hear any legislative requirement for the time sensitivity of this. I think if the property owner watches this meeting, they're going to feel kind of comfortable because I don't think I've heard a single director saying, hey, we don't want to allow the secondary accessory dwelling unit up there. I think what we're all saying is we actually want to allow accessory dwelling units through the whole area. The motion from back in November was that the board direct staff to prepare an amending Nootka Street zoning bylaw, so on and so forth. That was then referred to staff. Now we actually have the language of a change to the Nootka Street zoning bylaw in front of us. And I think it's an easy step forward. What we do is we just cross out on the parcel of land legally described as Strata Lot 7, District Lot, so on and so forth, ending with BCS 3610. And then we can refer that to staff. So that way the amending bylaw would say, hey, everyone up there can have an accessory dwelling unit no greater than 1,200 square feet. That would be first and second reading. I think that would be very straightforward. That'd be fairly simple. And as I understand, the legislation for time sensitivity says that we must consider it. Doesn't mean we have to approve it. And I think that this would be like taking a step backwards so that in the future we can take another step forward. I think it's a simple fix.
Thank you, Director. I saw Director McCormick's hand.
Thank you, Chair. Could we add an amendment, a third paragraph? So that we would approve the first two with a third paragraph that would read, and that staff be asked for a report on enabling, secondary dwellings throughout the zoning bylaw area.
Well, I think, yeah, thanks, Director. I think.
But that could be added as an amendment, so we can address both the need to move forward on this in good faith, and also the need to have a report back that would, normalize it or whatever, at least, create
I
an
appreciate,
opportunity for information regarding a full change to the full bylaw area.
appreciate what you're getting at, but I think we've already it's been clear, our staff have that direction to give us that report. It's in the pipeline, so I totally understand, but I think it's unnecessary to ask them to do that again, because we're clearly going to get that as soon as is practicable. And I'll just say that in my mind, I think to keep things kind of logistically in line, for my mind, we either approve or defeat this recommendation, and then get our report and move on from there. We already have the information forthcoming that we're going to need to make the decision. I will state that I don't see the urgency to approve this, only to then therefore possibly approve it or not for the area. I think it's CEO.
Hey, Chair, I'd like to ask Laura Rodden a quick question. So this applicant paid a fee? Okay.
$1,000.
All right. So kudos to the applicant for paying $1,000 to legalize their property. If we go this other proposed route, is the board going to refund this person their fee, and then everybody gets their things done for free on the Doherty's dime?
Through the chair, under.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Rod.
Development Services Procedures Bylaw, there is a process for reimbursements, but it would only be a partial. It depends where it's at in the process, like how much work has been expended on the application. It might be a 25% reimbursement. I'm not certain. I'd have to look at the bylaw. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because it has come up before about, how can people be recoup those losses. Director Gisborne, or we should be moving to a vote soon, but.
To answer the CAO's question, I do believe I touched on this in November. I would be fully in support of reimbursing the applicant the $1,000 and creating the solution for all of Nootka. Yes, we can collect $1,000 from each parcel owner as they put the paperwork submission in, and then that $1,000 is to try and cover some of our staff time to handle these paperwork and all these processes. So on the advice of what I've heard around the table, I would actually move that this item be referred to staff with the language that is property specific being removed. That makes sense, which would be refer this motion to the bylaw to staff, that property specific language essentially being removed. That was discussed. It was discussed previously.
I'll second that for discussion. Go ahead.
I think it's fairly straightforward. I think our staff will be able to come back with the information we need in March. I think if the property owner has any concerns, they can call me as they have done in the past, and they can watch the meeting. And I think what we're kind of hearing around the table is, I don't think anyone is saying, no, we're not in support of an accessory dwelling unit up on Nootka. I think what we're trying to do is be cost effective in solving a greater problem that has existed up on Nootka. Because keep in mind, the bylaw is from 1999, the OCP is from 2013, and allowing accessory dwelling units is allowed and supported under the Area B official community plan. And I want the zoning bylaw to reflect the will of the official community plan. So I think it's a very simple motion. Thank you, Chair.
Any other directors on the referral? Director McCormick?
No, it's okay.
No, decided against it. Okay. I'll just add my voice. I think this is the right path as well. We've had a good discussion on why. So without seeing any other hands, I'm going to move on the referral of this item. All those in favor? That's 2 for, and those against. That's 2 against. So how does that, so just for everybody that's watching, how does the vote when there's 2 for and 2 against?
Not pass.
Right, so that fails. The motion fails. So we're back to our original motion. We've had a good discussion about it. There's a recommendation.
And I'll be very, very brief.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm actually not in support of this motion because of all the folks I've talked to up on Nootka. One of the things that they really want is consistency in their community. That was one of the things that came up when we were looking at grasshopper developments. There's been a number of other proposed developments in the area. And what the residents I always hear is they're saying, hey, we want something that's fair and consistent across our area, across our neighborhood. And I think writing a bylaw that has language of regulations specific to one parcel, it actually spells out DL number, da, 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 da. I think it's a step in the wrong direction. And if we go down this path, we're going to be seeing increased administrative cost. We're going to have our staff be spending more time on this paperwork. And I think we need to, follow the advice that we've received in our political conferences of AVICC, UBCM, and LGLA, which is if your zoning bylaw is consistent with the OCP, update the zoning bylaw for the whole area. And I think that is on the shoulders of the elected officials. It's not our staff to, propose a rezoning for the whole area. It's the elected leaders. We got to do this. Otherwise, we're going to continue to face increased administrative costs throughout our organization. Thank you, Chair. So I'm against this.
Mr. Rodden, I saw your hand.
Through the chair, yeah, just a reminder that there is a directive on the books for staff to bring forward
Yes.
zoning to allow on the property. So that will be coming forward in the future.
Thank you. Look forward to that.
It's not the reason I'm opposed, though.
That's fine, Director Gisborne. So I think we've had enough discussion. We're going to put it to the vote. Just remember what's in our agenda. There is a recommendation before us. So all those in favor. Director Banner, Director McCormick are in favor. All those against. Myself and Director Gisborne. Therefore, that fails. Okay. On and around we go. We're on to 8.3, and I realize we probably should have put you guys up. I apologize for that. I'm going to do better next time to deal with things in order. So this is again a provincial referral for 11 lot bare land strata with remainder subdivision, Marble Bay Road, electoral area D. There's a recommendation, as with most water, septic, the qualified site level assessment of hazards, natural hazards, and then a cash in lieu for parkland dedication, 5% of the total land value. Director McCormick.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, second. Director Gisborne, seconded. Discussion. Director McCormick, anything to add?
No, I think it's a really good project. I believe the water lines are already in from the improvement district. So, yeah, Fernanda can absorb the density, and I think it's a great project. So yeah, support it. Thanks.
I thought it might be helpful to have an explanation of what a bare land strata is versus the other types of strata, because people might not understand.
There you go. That's a good question. I think Ms. Rodden, do you be able to answer what is a bare land strata versus any other type of strata? Is that too big of a question?
Well, it's not conventional subdivision where each parcel is registered as a fee simple title.
Okay.
Land Title Survey Authority. It's a strata, so they do own the strata parcel, but then there's the common property that's shown on the sketch plan in Appendix B. And the strata subdivision process had some different requirements in terms of what the ministry requires for roads. They don't need to build as wide in terms of the roads, and I think the strata lots themselves can be more affordable. I think that Michael Rogers might be able to answer that maybe in the question period.
We'll wait for question period. We might have some questions for you then. So, Dr. Elliott, does that answer your question?
Kind of, I was gonna add some information. So in a strata where your buildings are part of the strata, people would commonly have the strata taking care of the exterior parts of the building, and the owner would take care of the interior. When you're looking at a bare land strata, it's just the roads and service hookups that are owned by the strata and taking care of the strata, like your water hookups and your actual road clearing and so forth. The lot and everything on it, including the exterior of the building, in all of the building, would be owned by the person who purchases that strata lot. And so it's bare land as opposed to lands and buildings. And so that's kind of the difference as I understand it.
Very good.
People could correct me if I'm wrong.
And thank you. And page 8 of 16 in the report is, it's a great map. It kind of lays everything out. It's pretty obvious what's happening there. So, for that, any other hands?
Straightforward.
Yes, agreed. All right, we'll move to the recommendation. All those in favor? That is unanimous and carried. I think Director McCormick, the sun is shining there, so I think I saw your hand. Okay, great.
Yes, you did. I can't help it that I'm in a location with a sunny window.
No problem. Okay, thanks. We'll move on to 8.4. This is a development permit application on Highway 101 in my area, electoral area A. There is a recommendation to approve the permit for the lot. Thanks, folks. And that the general manager of planning services be authorized to issue that permit. So there is a recommendation. I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay. So we got that. And then I just have a question for staff. I need to be educated, and maybe people in my area on development permit applications. And I guess this application, the building already exists. So I'm just wondering, I guess my question is the development permit application process designed to apply before you build? Is it a must? I see that the recommendation is to allow yourself to be authorized to issue the permit. I just don't know enough about development permits themselves. And I see we have them in other areas like Savory and other. So I know that's a big question, but maybe you could fill us in a little bit about this particular piece of property and the process.
Sure. Through the chair, the area AOCP establishes development permit areas for riparian areas. And the property owner in this case is familiar with those and wanted to do the right thing. The onus is on the property owner. And so contacted the planning department and wanted to make an application. The DP is registered on title to the property. That's of value to the property owner. They go to sell it or provide certainty that they did the right thing.
Okay. And I think I read in the report that even though there's the development permit area, the structure is outside of the 30 meters?
Correct. And in our bylaw, Development Services Procedures, bylaw 477, there is a form of riparian areas declaration. So staff toured the property. The owner provided the sketch plan, which is in the appendix B, and it was confirmed that it was outside the 30-meter buffer. And so that declaration accompanies the development permit.
I guess just a final question, if, for myself, and if anybody asks me, do we recommend that people apply before they build or as early as possible in the process once they're aware of it? Is that how we operate?
The OCP recommends contacting the planning department prior to. But we've processed other permits where people have started work, finished work, and they want it to be done right. Yeah. We have a brochure.
Even better.
The ins and
Sounds
outs.
like I need to pick it up too, so thanks. Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get educated myself as well here. As I see the house is outside the riparian area, and I believe Area B has a development permit riparian area through Valley, Myrtle Creek. And, there's folks that, sometimes they'll go like, hey, can I build a barn next to the creek? And my response is, riparian, you got to go and check with all the appropriate ministries and check with the regional district. But if there's, say, someone that looks to build a structure or a house and they're outside the riparian area, like, I'm just kind of confused because this person is asking for development permit, but their house structure is very much outside the riparian area. So, like, is there even a requirement for them to make this application?
Thank you. Yes, thanks. I mean, that's kind of where my mind, why I originally asked. Maybe you could flesh that out a bit, Ms. Rodden.
Through the chair, all of the OCPs have the same set of riparian area development permit guidelines. They were all developed with the same legal advice. They're identical. The brochure describes the two scenarios. One, what you're developing or the land you're clearing is outside the 30 meters. The other scenario, you're inside. And it's a streamlined process to apply for the development permit if you're outside. So if you provide the declaration, if we go to the property, confirm it's outside, then it's very straightforward, the permit can be issued. If what they're proposing is within that 30 meters, then there's the requirement of a riparian area assessment done by a qualified environmental professional. And those reports recommend streamside protection areas, and they would recommend what the appropriate setback would be. And then that would be attached to development permit in the case, but it's a longer process and it requires more steps. And the whole reason we do it is because the province obligates local government to implement the riparian areas regulation.
So that's where it stemmed from.
Yeah.
Okay. Good explanation. Thank you. I don't see any other hands. The last comment is it's nice to see it. It's a beautiful structure being put up right in the heart of Lund, and it increases our housing and all that good stuff and adds to the neighborhood. So I applaud the owner for engaging with us. So we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the recommendation? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. No new business, I don't think. Question period. We have Mr. Galinsky. Our folks left, so go ahead.
Yes, Galinsky from the Peak here, Chair. Thank you. My question relates to item 8.2, which was the Nootka zoning bylaw. My presumption is with the failure of the motion, the individual that was applying for the 1,200 square foot accessory building is in non-compliance right now. I seem to have heard from the manager of planning services that somewhere in the pipeline there is a report for the accessory dwellings in the whole Nootka Street area. And I'm wondering through the chair when that is anticipated to be tabled.
Thanks, Mr. Galinsky. We were trying to give them a little bit of leeway, but Mr. Auden, do you have any idea when we can anticipate that? I know we're putting you on the spot. If not, you can follow up.
Through the chair, I have no way of predicting that because we have, of course, a revolving door of referrals we receive every month from different agencies that must be reviewed within timeframes. And that always takes precedence over other work. And in addition to that, we have two big projects underway. that have time sensitivities as well.
Okay.
So we'll get to it when we.
Sorry, we couldn't give you a definitive.
Not problematic, Chair. My second question through the chair then is, since this individual is still in non-compliance, is there any particular penalty they might be facing by the rejection of the motion?
Not that I'm aware of.
Those were my questions, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to pose them.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I hear from our staff that they've got quite a lot on their docket right now, and I'm just wondering if, would it be beneficial if the planning committee recommended that the board direct staff to kind of move that Nootka Street zoning bylaw report to like the top of the list, because I don't think the staff can juggle all that stuff without board direction of making a priority out of this Nootka Street zoning bylaw staff report. Just wondering, is that a requirement? Would that be beneficial?
I can't answer that. Ms. Broaden, do we need a motion or any action to sort of elevate its urgency? I mean, we want to avoid it getting kicked down the ladder. Go ahead.
The chair, if I could, I refer to
CAO?
CAO.
And through the chair, if you want to prioritize the staff's work in that regard, that's your prerogative. So motion would give us the direction, something in front of something else. And then ask that whoever staff then decides to go second, third, or fourth, be no objections to that.
All right, maybe we'll let you craft a motion.
I'm kind of looking at it.
Off the cuff, right? So
I'm wondering if our corporate officer could assist me in formulating the intent to elevate the Nootka Street zoning bylaw report.
Out of order here though?
Well,
I'm just checking because we're in question. We haven't
Yeah,
gone
so-
into this yet.
so it's not an item of business here. It might be appropriate to review. I mean, you would be making a motion to direct staff, and you wouldn't know what you're putting on the back burner.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know if this is the right time to address it. At question
Well, that's
period.
my point is I think where we are in the agenda, past new business, right?
So it might be appropriate to submit a motion
Right.
at either to a board meeting or to a future planning committee.
Okay,
meeting.
I think that is appropriate.
Okay, so at tomorrow's board meeting, when we go to adopt the agenda, I can put a motion on the agenda.
Thanks. I think that's the right way to handle that one. Other questions? We are here. In camera, do we have one? No proposed closed session. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Sandy.
Got a question.
Anybody else?